Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining us, whether you're listening live over the air on 96.5 FM The Answer in the Central Arkansas, Little Rock area, or if you're listening via the live stream on 96.5 FM TheAnswer.com, or if you're listening delayed via the podcast version or on Krypton Radio. Really glad you're here. Got a cool show today with indie game developer PixelMetal and their game Sombrero, which is a spaghetti western themed, basically melee smash 'em up co-op party game. So looking forward to talking to Nick from PixelMetal about that, and also what it's like to be an indie dev. I've followed him for Twitter quite a while. We've kind of gotten to know each other over Twitter. One of the things I like about him is he's one of those guys that doesn't varnish it. He just says, here's what it's like. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion with a indie dev game developer that isn't just trying to, it's just so great and we just had this positive experience, blah, 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 blah. The untruthful hype. You could be positive and still admit the realities. So I'm looking forward to talking with Nick. I get a feeling he's a truthful guy. You can always call in. This is Live Talk Radio at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. You can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. And with ShanePlays, don't forget, you can always hit the show notes on the website at shaneplays.com, ShanePlays.com. And the show notes for today's show are up there right now. So the news items that we talk about today and links to PixelMetal and the Sombrero game are on the show notes on the blog. And also on the blog, in addition to the podcast going out via multiple on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more, I always do the podcast version of the blog and archive it on the website at Shane Plays. And last week's show was a lot of fun. We had Michael Brown and Steven Chenault from Trollord Games, Michael Brown, of course, from Brain Trust, and we did a real deep dive on Rogue One. Zach, you missed it. Man, you missed it. I know you would have loved that. Zach's my producer. I know you would have loved to have been in on that conversation, but you were doing you were covering some sports stuff last weekend, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. All right. So, but yeah, it was a good, fun New Year's Eve show. And last but not least, Shane Plays is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. That's KryptonRadio.com, and the show runs a week delayed on Saturdays and Mondays. You can check the schedule on KryptonRadio.com. Okay, got a couple of quick notes to throw out, and then we'll introduce our guest. Shane Plays show sponsor, Collector's Edition, also known as the comic book store. It's Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock, and then it's the comic book store, I think, in the Treasure Hill Shopping Center in Little Rock. And their sale, which has been going on all week, today's the last day of it. You can get 25% off all action figures, 25% off all back issue comics, 25% off all graphic novels, and today only, and this is the last day of all this, they have their coupon day. Now you can go in, they'll have the coupons printed out on the counter. You can just grab one. You don't have to go have one to go in there ahead of time. You get 50% off, 50%, half off any one item. And that's not valid with any other sale or discount. And it's good for only items on the shelf. So it doesn't apply to like your reserve list or anything like that. But still, you can go in and, like, if there's a graphic novel you've been wanting to get or a back issue, instead of getting the 25% discount on one item, you get 50%. That's pretty good. So I'm going to swing by there and pick up my reserve list today after the show. And there's a couple of graphic novels, trade paperbacks I've had my eyes on. I'm probably going to grab one. And then finally, I don't have a lot of information on this. I just found out about it yesterday, but there is a con. There's a geeky con going on at the Embassy Suites in Little Rock, I think for the next 2 or 3 days, but it's definitely today. And it's called Arkansas, Zach. Not Arkansas, Arkansas. So, right? See what they're doing there? So, and I've got some friends over there, a coworker of mine named Zeb and his wife, Nicole. They have Studio Neko, which I guess is Neko is the word for cat. So it's Studio Cat, and they have some cool art items and stuff. So if you go over there, make sure to stop by Studio Neko and tell Nicole and Zeb that Shane said hi. So Shane plays. Anyway, moving right on, let's get in Nick from PixelMetal. Are you there?
Hey, Shane, how you doing?
What's up, man? I know you're somewhere in the hinterlands of New York City, right?
Yeah, I'm in one of the boroughs right outside of Manhattan.
All right. Yeah. So, are you a lifetime New Yorkite or?
Oh, I grew up in Philadelphia. I moved to New York the second time, I guess, in 2010.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show. If you will, just introduce yourself in your studio, and then we'll have a news segment, and then we'll talk about what you do, and then your game Sombrero.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. My name is Nick Robalik, and I'm from a indie game company called PixelMetal. And as Shane mentioned, we're working on a game called, well, I guess not working on it. It's out now.
It's out.
But still working on it. A game called Sombrero for right now for Windows, eventually for other systems. That's local and online,
right?
Multiplayer, like you mentioned, kind of Smash Brothers-y.
Right. Well, we'll talk. Yeah, and it's got that kind of spaghetti western thing going. But we'll talk more about this when we later in the show. But it started life as it was really supposed to be just exclusive, like couch co-op, right? Like you play it, locally, and then I guess you added a multiplayer.
Yeah. I think when we first talked, it was local only.
Yeah.
It was local only, and then later last year, I ended up hooking up with a newer publisher, and we decided to add online play to it. Yep.
Cool. All right. Yep. Well, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
After the news segment, but Zach, let's turn on the microphone of the news team and let's see what they're doing today. Whoa, working hard. Boy, they made it in. We had a blizzard of epic proportions here in Arkansas yesterday. I think we had an inch or less. So and in Arkansas, in the South, when you have one snowflake, that it's like panic time. Nick, I don't know if you know that or not. But we have these things we call.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know. I've been down to your area before, and everyone forgets how to drive.
Well, not only that, but everyone decides they want milk sandwiches, right? Because they'll say, hey, there may be a snowflake 3 days from now, and the milk and the bread will get just Armageddon devastated at the stores. So everyone's eating milk sandwiches. So anyway,
the two worst things to get.
Yeah,
when you're getting snowed in, because they're both they're both perishable.
Well, I think there's like some instinctual herd behavior, like a deep. You're like, oh, we might get snowed in for a few days. We need to get this stuff that So I don't know, but it's pretty funny. But yeah, a lot of people forget to drive. So anyway, so for New York, y'all wouldn't even count this as a snow. But for us,
people here forget how to drive when it snows.
Do they really? Oh man!
Oh yeah. New York isn't known for the best drivers to begin with.
Yeah. Well, you're spoiling my conception of New York, the hardened New Yorker. So, Zach, we got a Star Trek news item. So, Zach, go ahead and play us that Star Trek, and I always look for an excuse to play this. And Nick, before we play this, I take no responsibility for your psychological state after I play this. Go ahead.
Star trekking across the universe. On the Starship Enterprise, undertaking Kirk. Star trekking across the universe. Slowly going forward, 'cause we can't find reverse.
Okay, like I said, I accept no psychological responsibility for my guests or my listeners whenever I play that. But that is, of course, a tip of the hat to Dr. Demento, who I used to listen to and would play that on occasion. So anytime we have any Star Trek, we have to play that. So I don't know. I have no clue if you're a Star Trek guy, Nick, or if
I'm a huge Star Trek.
Okay, have you been following the Axanar storyline, where there was a fan film that they kickstarted?
Oh, that's the they're saying it's satire to avoid the lawsuit. Is that the right
That
thing?
was one of the things they tried to do.
Okay.
But I actually had Alec Peters, who was the driving force behind this, on several months ago and talked to me about it. Where I come from on this, before I read this news story, there's what's technically correct, and then there's what's wise and cool in life, right? So technically, I feel like that Paramount and CBS and all that have a point. Hey, this is our property, da 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 da, and, we need to protect it. And so we're going to be all heavy handed here. But the wise thing, the realistic angle that I have on this is Star Trek, like no other fan franchise out there, exists because of the fans. I mean, the fans have been so huge onto why Star Trek is where it is. The fans have saved the show on occasion. They've carried the torch when, CBS and Paramount aren't putting out TV shows or movies. So fandom on Star Trek just goes to a whole nother level. So I think that the being too heavy handed with the fans, especially in the 50th anniversary year of Star Trek, I'm not real happy about that. But I do acknowledge they have a technically correct legal standpoint. Okay. I want to acknowledge that, but I think they're being jerks. So, they're being jerks. And here's another reason why. This is the only fan film they're going after. And the guidelines that the CBS and Paramount a few months back released some quote unquote guidelines, said, if you follow these guidelines, we won't sue you. Well, there's a lot of fan films out there that don't follow these guidelines that they haven't done anything about, but they're going after Axanar. And there's a couple of reasons. One, the professional quality of Axanar was through the roof. It's like a shot across the bow, like, wow, they're doing real professional stuff here. And two, they raised $1 million on Kickstarter to make this thing. So, and so that's one of the legal arguments they've had is, are they profiting from this? Is he making money from this? And so there's all this stuff. Well, instead of just rolling over and showing their belly to, CBS and Paramount, the Axanar team fought back. And there's been a ruling, and it's actually not good news for Axanar. It's not over yet. The final nail's not in the coffin, but there was a ruling. I got Star Trek fan film dispute goes to jury trial and big ruling. And this is from the Hollywood Reporter. And a judge rules that the Axanar production company can't claim fair use, but a jury will decide the question of subjective substantial similarity. Okay. And what that means is the judge is basically saying, and people, I recommend people go to the show notes on shaneplays.com and read deeper on this, because I can't really cover in just a minute or two, a legal ruling. But what the judge is basically saying is what Axanar has done, because they released a prelude to Axanar that's 20 minutes or something like that. And that was done extremely well and had some higher profile actors in it. And then that was to tell people the quality of what the main Axanar movie was. And it's set 10 years before the original series timeline, which, oh, by the way, CBS and Paramount are now coming out with a TV series that's set 10 years before. Right. So I think that it's one of the main reasons, although nobody is saying this overtly, one of the main reasons why the legal attack dogs went after Axanar is because they did something right smack in the middle of what another TV show that they were wanting to put out, if that makes sense. So I think, go ahead.
I think it's even more than that, Shane. I think these guys did a better job on a series or something set during that time period than Paramount's going to do. Right. I think that's what it really comes down to.
No, I am with you on that. That the professional quality on it and the fan response was so huge that I think it literally, and I'm being a little bit melodramatic, but I think it scared CBS and Paramount a little bit. Like, whoa, there's we're losing the being the gatekeepers of the official, majorly cool stuff here. So
I mean, everything I've heard about their new series doesn't point to it being very good.
I have, go ahead.
Oh, and just the, I was just watching the trailer again for Axanar to remind myself, and just the visual effects in that look
amazing.
Than anything they've ever had on television for Star Trek.
Oh, it's amazing. Look really good. I mean,
it's film quality, really.
It's film quality. It really is. And like I said, it's a shot across the bow. So, but anyway, the Star Trek Discovery, which is the show that was already supposed to be out in January, but just been pushed out several months. It is so rushed. Like, they announced it midway last year and said, "Oh, it'll be out in January." I'm like, what? I mean, I'm not a Hollywood producer, but I know that that's an extremely aggressive timeline. I have a pet theory.
I don't know. They also lost their showrunner, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. Brian Fuller, I think, was, and a lot of people actually, fans were happy he was attached, and now he's not attached. So, so here's the thing. I have a pet theory. I have no evidence for this. It's just a theory that I have. Because none of this Star Trek Discovery stuff came out until after the whole Axanar brouhaha. I actually wonder, with the incredibly rushed nature that they're doing with Star Trek Discovery, if they didn't do Discovery and decide to do it after Axanar came out, and so that they had something in the exact same time frame as Axanar to reinforce their legal right to that. Does that make sense? I mean, is that, it's like, yeah, it's like, well, no, we have intellectual property right now that's right in that same time frame, because before Axanar came along, they didn't have any TV shows or movies that were set right in that time frame. No. So, but anyway, so what the judges said, and then I'll move on. The judges said, look, you can't claim fair use, you can't claim satire, but I'm going to leave it up to a jury to determine what individual elements violate intellectual property and copyright and which don't. Okay. So it's not good news for Axanar, but it could be worse, because you can sway a jury with an emotional argument. So I'm sure CBS and Paramount wish that the judges just said open and shut, because most corporations and they don't want to go to a jury trial because they don't have total control over, all the variables. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that's the latest on the Star Trek thing. I just hope somehow we'll still get to see, the finished Axanar thing, but we'll see what happens. Okay, moving on. We have a new D&D book coming out from Wizards of the Coast. It'll be out April 4th. It's called Tales from the Yawning Portal. It'll be $49.95. It come out April 4th. It's hardcover. And what this is this is a collection of existing established classic D&D adventures, but they'll be for 5th edition. So it's a collection of adventures that have proven themselves over time, including Against the Giants, which is an extremely well-known D&D module, Dead and Thay, Forge of Fury, Hidden Shrine of Tomoakin. I think I'm saying that right. I'm not familiar with that adventure. These other ones I pretty much know. Sunless Citadel, The Tomb of Horrors. Tomb of Horrors is a major well-known classic. And then White Plume Mountain, which is also a well-known. And Tomb of Horrors and White Plume Mountain are what are considered... I've heard them described as amusement park modules, which they don't make any sense whatsoever. It's just a series of challenging and puzzling encounters that are there just for that sake. Like, they don't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason for why some of these challenges, they're just, can you survive to the end kind of thing. So, are you a D&D guy at all, Nick?
I was when I was younger. I haven't played it in a very long time. I started going towards different role-playing games, I think, when I got older. Yeah.
Do you play any now? I'm still a huge tabletop.
Not really any pen and paper stuff. I think after D&D, I went over to Rifts for a while.
Rifts was big. Still is.
I think the sci-fi setting appeals to me.
Yeah.
More than the Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing.
Gotcha. Well,
but that's the last one I played, and that was probably, that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's been
probably.
a while. Okay, so it's not huge. Well, this 5th edition D&D is extremely well done, and it's really doing well. So as a still an active tabletop RPG gamer, I'm happy about this new book coming out. Okay, we got a piece of video.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm into it. So, and 5th edition, all the stuff they put out so far has been extremely well done. So, video game news: World of Warcraft's Diablo anniversary celebrations includes a secret cow level. I don't make up the news, folks. I just report it. With Diablo celebrating, and this is from GameSpot, with Diablo celebrating its 20-year anniversary, Blizzard's various games are marking the occasion in their own ways. Let's see. We've got a Reddit user reports that his name is Tim from the Beach, reports the discovery of a secret cow level in WoW. The secret cow level is a long-running joke from Diablo. Despite tooltips suggesting such a thing doesn't exist, players could find their way into a special location in Diablo 2 where they'd fight axe-wielding bipedal cows. WoW's version seems to operate in a reasonably faithful way. So you track down a treasure goblin, kill it, then it creates a portal, and then you get to a location with killer cows. That's right, Zach. Killer cows, including the Cow King. So, let's see. I think it's got some dates here on when this will happen. I guess it's running now through January 11th. So you still have a few days to experience that if you're listening live. If you're listening to the podcast or Krypton radio version, it may be over by the time you're there. Now, in all transparency, I don't play WoW. It's never grabbed me, but I know it's a big enough game that I wanted to pass that news item along for my listeners. Do you play WoW? Are you an MMO guy at all? Nick? Do we still have Nick? Did we lose him? Yeah. Nick.
Hey.
Yeah, hey,
am I here?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just realized I had my mic turned off.
Yeah, no
accident.
problem. You temporarily went out of phase. It's okay. Yeah. If something doesn't go wrong once in the show, it's not Shane Plays. So.
Gotcha. I haven't played WoW in quite some time. I tried it when it first came out, and it seems like a huge time sink. Yeah,
it's never grabbed me. I've tried it several times. I have friends who rave about it, but it has just never grabbed me. Now, there's other MMOs that I'll play here and there, but WoW has just never done it for me. So, but I respect the fact that millions of people love it. So okay, and then finally, Zach and Nick. We lost Pluto, right? We lost Pluto a few years ago. But in return, science has given us a new organ that you didn't know that you had. Did you know about this, Nick?
Oh, I saw a headline about it, and then I didn't really follow up and read it. What's our new organ? It's
called the mesentery. And have you ever wondered what connects your intestine to your abdomen? I mean, I think about that a lot.
All the time.
But evidently the mesentery does. The mesentery connects our intestine to our abdomen and hitches it up so that I guess our intestine doesn't sort of splish down into our pelvic area and not be able to do its job. The funny thing is here, Leonardo, and this is from CNN, Leonardo da Vinci claimed that this was an organ centuries ago, and then it was kind of considered that, but then some rando came along named Sir Frederick Treves and said, no, it's not really an organ. So it lost its organ status, but now it's back. It's back as an organ after a study. So there you go, the mesentery. It was thought to be a collection of tissue fragments, but now it's one big organ that spreads like a Chinese fan and helps your intestines do their thing. So there you go. That's all the news you could ever hope to want to know right here on Shane Plays, a journey and things we love. Nick, we're going to take a break, pay the bills. When we come back, we're going to talk about PixelMetal and Sombrero. Zach, take us to a break, buddy.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Comic book lovers, Michael Tierney's local comic book stores meet all of your comic book needs with friendly service. Visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock or Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock. And don't forget to click on over to the wildstars.com website. I personally have been a customer of Michael's since the mid-'80s, and I trust him for my reserve list still today. Michael knows comics. In addition to being in business for 34 years, he has written multiple columns for comic magazines, is an Overstreet price guide advisor, and publishes his own comic book series, The Wild Stars. Trust me, these stores are run by a comic book lover for comic book lovers. Remember, for all of your comic book needs with friendly service and to get your copies of The Wild Stars, make sure to visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock or Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock, and visit thewildstars.com to learn more.
Chapman Service is offering for a limited time 0% financing on a new Train comfort system. Call for your free personal estimate. Do it today. Chapman Service. All you want in a heating air conditioning company and nothing you don't.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Hey, we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. Don't forget, this is live Geek Talk Radio. It's not just a podcast, although I love podcasts. You can actually participate live. You can call in at 501-823-0965, or you can tweet me at Shane Plays. That's ShanePlays. And I'm joined by Nick of PixelMetal, which is an indie game dev studio, I should say, out of one of the boroughs of New York City. And they have a game out called Sombrero, which has a fuller subtitle. I'll let you give us the fuller subtitle. It's Spaghetti Western Mayhem, I think, is the subtitle of it. So just want to talk to you. You know, we've been talking on Twitter for quite a while. I'm intrigued by what it's like to be an indie game dev, and then also, wanting to help promote your game. So I guess Nick, tell us a little bit more about PixelMetal and why Sombrero. Why did you do Sombrero?
Sure. So I like spaghetti westerns.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? Gosh darn it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can stretch it out a bit longer. So Sombrero was kind of a product of sitting at my desk at work doodling on Post-it notes, and I just started doodling these little characters. And then threw all those Post-it notes in a drawer, and then forgot about them for 2 years. And then going through my desk, I found them and said, "Hey, I should do something with this." I was sort of getting the itch to make a game at that point. That wasn't my full-time job. I was working as a art director for advertising, marketing stuff.
Okay.
And needed something else to do that was a little bit more fulfilling, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working on Sombrero, and I guess that was around 3 or so years ago at this point. And did that on and off, part-time while I was working full-time. And then last year hooked up with a publisher called Alliance Digital Media. They were, still are, I should say, a distributor for games. So they distribute to, like Walmart, Target, that kind of stuff.
Okay, nice.
And they wanted to get into doing some game publishing. So I hooked up with them to do that. And here we are. And the game came out in October. And since then, I've been, going through and tweaking things, adding some more content. Because it's online play, and it's multiplayer only, at least at this point.
Right.
The idea is to just keep adding content to it, like a bigger studio would. We keep seeing stuff like Overwatch get new stages and that kind of stuff. So I'm taking the same tactic there.
All right. So there you
go.
For the life of an indie game dev, are you, as to give us a look into the life, and I know everybody's a little bit different. Are you doing this full time now, or are you still kind of working and then doing this on the side, or how are you balancing things out?
Well, now it's funny. It's kind of switched now. So technically, I'm doing the game stuff full time right now, and then I'm doing freelance art direction.
I got you.
So I'm still doing client work to keep money rolling in.
Sure. No, I understand that.
I got an advance from the publisher that wasn't. It wasn't bad, not nothing substantial, especially with how much everything costs in New York. If I was living somewhere else, it would probably go a lot farther.
That's the moment you cross from being a hopeful to a professional. When as soon as you start getting paid for something, you become a professional. So you are now a professional game developer, dude. That's pretty cool.
I like your logic. Let's go with that.
Okay, you are. So how's the response been? I loaded up. I've loaded up 2 different versions of it, and really the only complaint that I've seen on the game, I don't see any complaints on it looks great, it looks cool, it's a lot of fun, is sometimes people are having a hard time finding matches. That's the only complaint I've seen on the game. So do you feel that, at this point in the development cycle or whatever, that you're where you want to be?
Well, I mean, at this point, we're not like I mentioned Overwatch before, because I'm not Blizzard,
Right.
and my publisher is not Activision, so it's not going to come out with this built-in player base of millions of people,
Right.
like something like Overwatch would.
Right.
So what we've been doing the last couple months is building up the awareness, basically, so that people know that the game exists and that it's available for them to play. Not having millions
Right.
of dollars to advertise and market that means that kind of got to do it the old-fashioned way.
Right.
The indie band kind of way, which
Right.
is pounding the pavement. Going to lots of
Right.
events. Selling it at events, that kind of stuff. And at this point, we're looking to figure out more features that would make it easier to find matches. We have
Right.
there's regional servers, right? So if you're in the UK, you're going to get someone in the UK. to
Yeah,
play against,
I saw
not
somebody
someone in the
mention that
US.
you could change servers. I saw
Yeah.
somebody say that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and so that's good for paying and making sure there's as little lag as possible.
Right.
Because online it's impossible to 100% avoid lag. It's
Right.
you're hiding the lag as best you can. And so looking at things like changing it a little bit, not from a player's perspective, but from a dev perspective, making it so that it searches every region for the available games and hooks you up to the closest one. So in the US there's two sets of servers. There's US West, which covers the West Coast, and will cover where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the US East server, which covers the Midwest and the East Coast and all the way down. So setting, doing some work to make it so that it shows the games from East and West Coast. So if you're on the East Coast and there's no one playing on the East Coast, it'll hook you up with the West Coast automatically instead of having to do what you do right now, which is go in and manually change which server you're connected to. So it's kind of hiding some things like that to make it easy to find games. Maybe players don't need to manually switch servers. Maybe it's done automatically based on where they are in the world to hook them up to the game with the best connection.
Right.
Because it's not. It doesn't work like what's a good example? I guess like Call of Duty used to work, where you host your own match.
Yep.
And then the player hosting the match has a little bit of an edge because they're hosting
Right.
the
Well,
match.
because they're getting
delay.
they have no delay, right? No ping.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's not like that. Everyone connects to the server. I guess it's like Call of Duty now, where everyone connects to another server, so no one's really hosting the game.
right.
So no one has an edge. Theoretically, whoever's closest to the server geographically is going to have a little bit of edge, but at that point you're talking about half of a millisecond. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
So working on things like that, and we need to get it out on other platforms other than Steam as well. Steam's very crowded these days, especially this year.
Yeah,
so discovery is a little difficult.
I think I'm getting, I don't know if that's on your end or on ours, Zach. I was getting a little bit of feedback. I don't hear it now. So, Steam is a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It's a really amazing, cool platform for indie devs to get their games out on. But since it's an amazing, really cool platform for everyone to get their games out on, everyone's getting their games out on it. So, and I read a really interesting perspective on this a few weeks ago. The challenge to getting to people playing your game is not so much money, it's time, right? Because it's like most people can afford to buy, it's the time. Like everybody I know that uses Steam has a lot of games that they never get a chance to get to. So, and so it's like it's an embarrassment of riches for games. So you've got to, like you said, how do you get it to stand out? So it's interesting. I think you're the first person I've ever heard, and so maybe it's kind of indicating this is one of the reasons why I want to talk to you, how indie devs are starting to think, it's like, I got to get my game outside of Steam in order for it to get recognized.
Yeah, well, it's not
that's
even
so
necessarily just getting the game. I mean, that's part of it, because there's, Humble has their own store now. That's not
I
just
hear
reselling
Humble.
Steam keys. They have their own store, and of course, there's good old games.
Yeah.
I'm not really a huge fan of the third-party Steam key resellers.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, that quote unquote gray market thing. You know,
yeah. It's not gray. The developers aren't really getting any cash from
so
that.
it's basically black market from your perspective.
Yeah. From a developer's perspective, it's a black market. And a great example of it is we did a key giveaway. I think the first weekend that the game launched with VG247. They get a lot of traffic and they do a lot of key giveaways, so we thought that would be a good idea. And we did 5,000 keys. We figured that would be enough.
Right.
And what ends up happening is 3/4 of those keys end up for sale
somewhere else.
On those gray market sites. So I checked. The keys were gone in an hour. Because bots snap those up, mostly bots in Russia and China,
right?
Because we can see where the keys go, from the Steam backend.
In Soviet Russia, we will take your key.
Right. And so they're taking the keys and reselling them. So within that hour of the keys being made available, they were already for sale on these
Well,
black market site.
Which that's why I'm a big fan, and I think y'all did this. I think the free weekends are better, right?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, let everyone play for free, but there's nothing to take and then turn around and resell or try to take advantage of. So, and I know you did a free weekend, if I remember right.
Yeah, we did a free weekend, and then that dovetailed into a sale. The Steam Winter Sale. And of course, it was the Steam Winter Sale. Everyone gets a bit more sales than they were previously. So in that way, it's good. But because everything is on sale on Steam, it's very hard to stand out. And it has very little to do with quality. In terms of standing out during the Steam sale, I mean, obviously the big games are going to stand out more. Much higher production value. They put a lot more money behind them. I definitely didn't put $100 million behind Sombrero like something like Titanfall 2 would get.
Right. Well, I think that from what I can tell. Okay, now I only know so much from my perspective. It looks like the Sombrero from the art, not even the in-game art, but the promotional art, to the game itself, the graphics and the craziness going on, to the website supporting it. It seems to be maybe a notch or two higher than the average indie game. So, I hope that, you keep, it seems to be like, especially for a first game, because this is PixelMetal's first game, right? It seems to me like you've at the very least shown that you can put out a high quality product. So I hope that either A, this is successful, or if for some reason it's not, you can show people I know what to do, and my next game, you've got some credibility for your next game or whatever. But it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like. Go ahead.
Oh, so either way it works out. One way I just have to do more other work, if it doesn't sell. But it's been steadily selling, and so it's become an issue of scale.
Right.
People are buying it. Like you said, the biggest complaint is being able to find someone to play against.
So
there's not always people online right now. So the idea is to get that to happen. And maybe that means participating in putting Sombrero in a like a humble bundle.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I've heard a lot of people say that. Now, this is not so much from the video game standpoint, but one of our sponsors is Troll Lord Games. They do role-playing games and other stuff, tabletop. And they've also, become friends of mine. And they said when they go on Humble Bundle, that really helps them out a lot. So now when you said earlier, you talked about you talked about sort of resellers, and do you include Humble Bundle, and is that a negative, or is Humble Bundle good for you?
Well, they're a little different, right? So they bundle the keys, and they've got the street cred, I guess. They've proven their value to both gamers and game developers.
Well, they've got a good reputation from the consumer standpoint.
Right.
I know that.
Right. Yeah, and I think they've earned one on the developer side too. And so there is the Humble Bundle, which is where they resell Steam keys basically.
Right.
And then there's also the Humble Store, which is where you can buy games and I think maybe this is newer, so the difference
Right.
isn't quite as obvious. But you're not buying keys from them; you're buying the game right from them. And it's kind of a good old game setup where
Right.
you download the game right from Humble Store. Now, of course, that presents other things that could be issues where if you buy the game through Steam, for me to do an update on a game on Steam, it takes no time at all.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Everyone automatically gets the update, but if on something like Humble Store,
You have
unless
to
they
go
have a system
find
in
it.
place that I'm not aware of, you
Yeah.
have to manually notify people, and they can't, and the game won't automatically update. They have to manually update it.
Right.
So working things like that out matter a lot for a online game.
Right.
Because if I make a change
Right.
In a newer version that breaks something in an old version, I can't have you don't want people playing against each other on two separate versions because they're going to think there's a
Right.
bug
Well,
when there's not a bug.
And
They're
that's
not
the
gonna be
advantage to a closed system and everything being a stacked platform or integrated. I mean, I'm an Android guy, so I don't like the closed nature of iOS, iPhones.
Me
But
neither. Yeah,
but
I'm an Android guy as well.
yeah, but they have control of, they know everybody's on the same equipment with the same updates. You know what I'm saying? So there's plus and minuses. You get that more freedom, but you lose, some seamless, everything working together or whatever. So
Right, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And Steam's kind of in between. I mean, they're not really a closed system. From a developer's perspective on Steam, you can kind of do whatever you want, really.
Right.
I mean, do you want to use the built-in Steam DRM
Right.
or not? Do you want to do this? Do you want to
Right.
do that? Even something like the Steam controller, because on one of the last updates I did, I added Steam controller support because I figured why not?
Yeah. Why the heck not?
Right. I mean, it wasn't a lot of effort, and it didn't take a lot of
It's just-
time.
it's just- and-
I had people ask for it, so why not?
So I'm coming at this and then I've got to get us to a break so I can come back and have some more time to talk to you.
Sure.
I'm more of a traditional program. I'm not a game dev. If I'm a game dev and I'm like, I built my game in, let's just say Unity. I don't even know what you built yours in. And then I'm like, I want to do Steam controller support. If I'm working in JavaScript or Java or this or that, I can import a library and it just does everything for me. I mean, is it that trivial, or trivial is the wrong word, but is it that straightforward?
Well, it's even more straightforward, and that's what I was going to say about Steam being both open and closed. So there is an API for the Steam controller that you can use,
Mhm.
but you don't have to use it. You can also do something like just set up a profile that when someone installs, a controller profile that uploads to Steam.
Right.
And whenever anyone updates the game or downloads the game, that they automatically get that profile added to their account as soon as they activate the Steam controller, playing the game, which is the way I went.
That's the way you went.
Because that way they can use all of the Steam stuff that already exists, especially in big picture mode, to reconfigure it any way they want to at that point. They don't even need to launch the game yet.
Nice.
They can or they don't even need to go to a different menu. They can just, launch the Steam overlay while they're playing the game and change the controls right there in what's
so
become
cool.
a standard menu then at that point, because it would show up in every game that's on Steam. And stuff like that's really super handy.
That is so good. I can remember when Valve first started talking about doing Steam at all. Everyone's like, that's a terrible idea, blah, blah, blah. And now here it is. It's this major thing. So yeah, totally crazy. All right. Well, I'm going to get us to a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you, get your quick thoughts. We'll have about 6-7 minutes on what do you enjoy being an indie game developer? What are the highs and lows? Maybe get your thoughts on DRM. I know that's a big spaghetti. I know that's a big can of worms right there. But anyway, let me get us to a break and we'll be back. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase or $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
Comic book lovers, Michael Tierney's local comic book stores meet all of your comic book needs with friendly service. Visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock or Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock. And don't forget to click on over to the wildstars.com website. I personally have been a customer of Michael's since the mid-'80s, and I trust him for my reserve list still today. Michael knows comics. In addition to being in business for 34 years, he has written multiple columns for comic magazines, is an Overstreet price guide advisor, and publishes his own comic book series, The Wild Stars. Trust me, these stores are run by a comic book lover for comic book lovers. Remember, for all of your comic book needs with friendly service and to get your copies of The Wild Stars, make sure to visit the comic book store on Treasure Hill Road in Little Rock or Collector's Edition on JFK Boulevard in North Little Rock, and visit thewildstars.com to learn more.
Chapman Service is offering for a limited time 0% financing on a new Train comfort system. Call for your free personal estimate. Do it today. Chapman Service. All you want in a heating air conditioning company and nothing you don't.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays, a journey into the things we love, Geek Talk Radio. I'm joined by Nick Robalik of PixelMetal, game design studio. We've been talking about their co-op multiplayer smash up spaghetti western themed melee game, Sombrero, Spaghetti Western Mayhem, which you can find on Steam and sounds like soon in other areas. Check it out. It's a cool game. Nick sounds like a very cool guy, and I've gotten to know him over Twitter. He's one of those guys. One of the reasons I like Nick and following him on Twitter is he'll just share honest stuff. He doesn't buy into this fake, artificial, Pollyanna, everything's always amazing hype that a lot of these game developers, they'll be like, had an amazing time. No, you didn't. You didn't have an amazing time there yesterday. You had a bad time there yesterday, but you're always putting this crazy spin on it. Sometimes you have a good time, but not every possible thing you can do in life is amazing. So I like people like Nick who are positive, but also honest. So with that in mind, Nick, I was going to what since you've become a indie game dev, chasing your dream there, you put out this incredibly polished game as your first game. I'm assuming you did you do everything on your own?
I didn't do the soundtrack. I hired a guy named Nate Chambers to do the soundtrack, but I did everything else.
So what, if you don't mind me asking, what did you use to develop it?
I used speaking of JavaScript-based game engine called Construct 2.
Oh, how funny. Okay, because almost every time people say they're working on Unreal,
everybody says Unreal or Unity.
Yeah, almost every time.
Well, it's 2D, and when I started on the game, Unity's 2D tools weren't very good, or at least I couldn't get them to do what I wanted them to do. And another friend of mine who's kind of the same background, worked in marketing on the design side, had been messing around with this engine called Construct 2. And so I checked it out. I was like, wow, this is really good in terms of, the way it lets you do things strictly in 2D. Instead of doing 2D in a 3D engine, which is what a lot of people do with Unity, which has its own benefits and negatives.
Right.
But yeah, so Sombrero is technically it's JavaScript. It's a lot of JavaScript.
That's interesting. That's actually really cool because I've got a new job I've been starting, or I have started, and I've had to refresh my JavaScript a lot. So that's fascinating to hear that a game like that looks so great was done in JavaScript, or at least a JavaScript based game engine. So that's really neat.
Yeah. Well, it's running in Node WebKit.
Okay.
Actually,
that's really cool.
It's fully web tech.
Well, one of the amazing things about JavaScript is the huge amount of excellent libraries and frameworks that are out there. So, that's really cool. So What do you think the current state? Now, we already know that we got about 3 minutes here. We already know that there is a glut, for want of a better word, of really good games on Steam. It's not just a bunch of trash. There's a lot of but there's so many. What is the current state of, if somebody's like, I want to chase my dream of being an indie game dev, what's the current state?
Well, I don't know that it's really that different than it's ever been with anything related to indie stuff. Anything starting out small business. It's hard.
Right.
It's not easy. It is not fun all the time. The people that tell you that it is, or the people that you shouldn't trust.
Right.
There's one of the nice things about going the indie route, just to compare it to indie music, and not like indie music as a genre, but in just doing music not with a big label or anything like that, is you get to see, I think, a bit more of what really goes on,
right,
like in the community, not just the indie dev community,
right,
but the gaming community,
right,
itself. Get an idea what's really going on. I like and I like having booths at different events.
Right.
PAX was not necessarily my style, but it was good to have a booth there because it's a big show. I like a lot of the littler shows. Maybe 30,000 people down to like 5,000.
Well, that's kind of how I am. I like to go to the smaller cons because I can actually build relationships.
You actually get
to
talk to people.
You get to talk to people at their booth. Yeah, I mean, I went to a smaller con and got to have a great conversation with Neil Adams, who's one of the main comic book dudes ever. And if that was it, like San Diego,
I know his son.
What, Joel?
Actually, Jason.
Jason, yeah, I know of Jason. I've met Joel. Listen, I'm about to have to wrap us up. Nick, I've enjoyed having you on. Stay in touch on Twitter. Love to hear, if any future game releases you have or anything like that. And of course, I'll help you promote. I like to help people who are out there, doing stuff. Real question. Unfortunately, we'll have to do this yes or no because we're getting so close to time. If you put out a good product and you're willing to work hard, can you get a fair shake in the game industry right now?
Maybe.
Okay, if the wind blows just right. Okay, I got you. All right, I'm going to wrap it.
If you know the right people.
If you know the right people. Okay, I'm going to wrap us up with our bad joke of the week. What's a computer's favorite beat? An algorithm. We'll catch you next time on Shane Plays.
Here on my daddy's farm. By night I roam the neighbor's place in search of corn, chewing my cud and trying to keep my udders warm. I'm a werewolf. Moo, moo, moo. I'm a werewolf. Moo, moo, moo.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.